Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Planning, Economic Development and Housing Committee. Today is Wednesday, March 3rd, and we begin our meeting at 5:30. I will introduce our committee members. Who do we have with us? My name is Shirley Surgeon, and I am the chair of the committee. We have Councilman John Gale. We have Councilman Jimmy Sanchez, who are also a committee member. And we also have Councilman Nick LeBron. He's not a committee member, but he will always joins our committee, and welcome, Councilman. And we have Councilwoman Marilyn Rossetti, who is a committee member. As other committee members join us, I will introduce them. Unfortunately, I don't see anyone else. We also have with us Amy Chambers, who is the Planning and Zoning Development leader. We also have with us, is it Josie? Trying to
Correct.
get
We have it, Josie Utic.
you right. And Josie is the chair of the Planning and Zoning Commission. And so as people join us, I will introduce them. And we also have Randall Davis, who's the deputy director of the Economic Development Department. So those we have with us. I can't see anyone else. So let's get started. And I'll introduce everyone as we get going. So the first item, we have two items on the agenda tonight. The first item on the agenda is it's from Mayor Bronin with an accompanying annual report submitted on behalf of the Planning and Zoning Commission for the City of Hartford. This annual report is mandated by city ordinance and recounts the activities of the commission for 2020. This item was item 3 on the February 8th, 2020 agenda. So who do we have is going to be speaking on agenda 1, Ms. Josie or Ms. Amy?
I will defer to the chair. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Josie, well, welcome to the Planning, Economic Development and Housing Committee. And the floor is yours, ma'am.
Great, thank you very much. I really appreciate having this opportunity to share with you the wonderful things that the Commission and the Planning and Zoning Department have achieved over the past year. There is, of course, published in detail kind of the highlights of those events, but just to quickly summarize, I do want to note a few highlights. One of which is that when the pandemic hit, our commission was one of the first to start conducting web-based meetings. We think it's been a great tool in terms of an ability for those who aren't able to attend meetings in person. It is something we're considering to continue in the future. Of other note is just allowing for flexible zoning for outdoor seating during the pandemic, and we're looking, given the success that business owners had with having that kind of flexible zoning, to continue perhaps that as a more permanent aspect of the zoning regulations. We said goodbye to a few of our commissioners and our previous chair, Sarah Bronin, all of whom we miss very much. And we also brought in and welcomed new commissioners and a new commission council, as well as new planning staff as well. So there's been a lot of a flurry of activity when it comes to personnel, but it's been, I think, a very harmonious transition, and everyone is very much committed to making sure that this commission and the department are serving in its best capacity for the city of Hartford. In terms of all things zoning regulations and edits, one of which is that I think we're most excited about and will be the second half of this meeting, is about the bike plan and the complete streets efforts. Others minor zoning edits have comprised of, again, outdoor seating, public health, and signage. In review of what the commission had overseen last year, we had a total of 34 special permit, site review plans, and wetland applications. And one thing that perhaps maybe Ms. Chambers would like to briefly discuss is kind of the endorsement that the commission had in recognition of the department's public engagement efforts by adopting a standard operating procedure when it comes to elevating public discourse and knowledge of regulations and upcoming hearings. We think it's been a wonderful effort on their part. And last but not least would be the city action plan that was conducted last year. It's something that I know that we would love to discuss further in terms of the action plan was adopted last year. Thanks to COVID, I think the energy kind of was put in halt in terms of thinking of how to transform and move the city forward. So that's something I believe the commission and the department would want to actively engage with the council in terms of next steps to make sure that we are taking that city action plan and really creating a strategic plan in terms of adopting all of these recommendations. And that is in short, well, pardon me, and the last but not least, I think just as part of celebration for the city, I think it's important to note kind of all of the outreach that the commission and the department has conducted with various working groups with the city in terms of an internal aspect, but also kind of throughout the world, literally in terms of speaking engagements about zoning efforts, sustainability efforts, and how our zoning regulations are something recognized internationally in terms of great efforts for helping to foster the kind of community in which we want to live. So that is it. I'm welcome any questions that you may have or any clarifications.
Great.
Other than that, I'm all set.
Great. I don't know if Amy wants to add anything before the questions begin.
Just to chime in on the engagement aspect, council members, the Planning and Zoning Commission in partnership with the division set about creating a uniform standard essentially for us with regard to commission applications. When we receive applications now that will go before either our Planning and Zoning Commission or our Zoning Board of Appeals, we have formalized our the expectation that we put information on meeting info within a specific interval so that it is available for public consumption and review. In addition, we are sending a formal notice to the NRZs and putting that letter as well online to describe the application and to provide contact information for the applicants and to do so sooner than later so that community members and NRZ leadership have the opportunity to engage with those applicants to ask questions and then to submit letters back to us so that we can include them in the record of our meetings moving forward. Finally, we are also making sure that our staff are attending NRZ meetings on a monthly basis and reporting on not only the notices that went out to the NRZs with regard to upcoming commission items, but also our administrative applications, any applications that were completed in the month prior and any applications submitted to us in the month prior so that members of the public are aware of that information.
Great. Thank you, Amy. I just want to also add that we have our council president, Molly Rosado, who is also joined the meeting. And I believe I saw Councilman Bermudez's telephone number. Am I correct? Did I lose her?
Yep,
You are here. Okay, great. Thank you. I remember seeing you for a quick second there. And also Councilman Bermudez is a member of the committee. So we do have a quorum, and I would first want to congratulate Josie in being the chair of our Planning and Zoning Commission. Welcome, and looking forward to working with you. Also wants to congratulate all the new members of the Planning and Zoning Commission. So first want to welcome you guys and thank you all, Josie and your commissioner, for all the hard work that you do on behalf of the residents of the city. I will now open the floor up to the members of the committee for any questions or comment. And I can't see, so bear with me.
Councilwoman Surgeon?
Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead, Councilman Sanchez.
Yes, through you, Chair. I was hoping maybe we can have that presentation prior to the questions so that everyone has a understanding of what the plan entails.
That will be the second item on the agenda, sir.
Okay.
The first item on the agenda is the annual report that we have to receive from the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Okay, and unfortunately, I didn't have an opportunity to go through it, but I thank you, Joyce and Amy, for sharing that information with us. One of my concerns, and I've been bombarded with calls and emails, is that the small businesses throughout the city of Hartford has been complaining and very disturbed as to the bike lanes that's been implemented in place of parking space for their customers. And now whenever there's a customer that does park there, they end up getting a $75 ticket. So my question to you is what kind of outreach has been done when it comes to our businesses who are basically the backbone of the city when it comes to revenue tax?
Could we hold that question to the second item on the agenda, Councilman, if you don't mind?
No, I don't mind.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any other questions, comments from John? Is that you're holding your hands up?
Yes.
Okay, please go ahead, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Josie and Amy, and I know Randall's here as well to answer any questions about any of these matters. I have two questions / comments. I don't recall ever receiving this report on an annual basis. I'm thrilled that we're getting it, and so I guess one question is, was this something that was sort of inputted into some new part of when we adopted the Hartford 400, or I don't know exactly when this got adopted. I kind of figured like I should have been part of getting it adopted. But whatever it was, it's a great idea. So thank you for that. But then kind of very specifically, I just got an inquiry today from someone who is concerned that our city plan, the Hartford I guess it's called Hartford 400, didn't include something that this person thinks should be included. And I said that I would look into whether there was the ability to amend the plan, supplement the plan, whatever, once the plan was adopted. And so this is like perfect timing. You're here, so maybe somebody could speak to that and tell me if there's an interest in amending our plan, how we go about doing that.
Sure. So let me just quickly answer your first question about annual reports. It was brought to my attention that it is customary for the commission to create and forward it to you. I do have copies of previous years, so I'm more than happy to distribute that to this committee if you'd like to see it in a few reviews. I was informed to send it to the mayor as well as the head of this commission, as well as the head of the council. I unfortunately can't speak to years prior for that, but just to let you know, they do exist, and to my knowledge, they have been distributed. In terms of your second question, I there's something that you mentioned that I want to clarify, because I think what really confuses the public at large is that there are two things going on. There is Hartford 400 and there's Hartford 2035. And they are both things that kind of work in collaboration with each other. Hartford 400 is technically something spearheaded by the IQUILT plan and their partners. Hartford 2035 is kind of the repository for all things specifically to the Hartford municipality. So Hartford 400 is addressing Hartford as a region and is spearheaded by IQUILT, whereas Hartford 2035 is specifically within the confines of our the city lines.
And that's our plan of conservation and development.
Correct. Yes.
All right, I stand mistaken. I'm mistaken. I strike everything I said about Hartford 400. I meant Hartford 2035.
No, and I suspected as much, but it was, and to be honest, it was something that I needed clarification as well. But I think, you know, each time that it is brought up, it's important to highlight that for everyone so that we all understand what's going on. It's a very subtle difference, but just helpful in terms of understanding who is doing what. And I'm in conversation with the folks at IQUILT and vice versa. We're trying to make sure that there is an ongoing collaboration amongst all entities, because in reality, there is a shared vision and a lot of crossover of those elements. So I was just merely pointing out a minor technicality. Now, in terms of whether or not something was included in the action plan, you know, ultimately, I'd like to think of the city action plan, the plan of conservation development. It's a working diagram. It's a document. It's a living entity, and that obviously, as we go forward in the future, things may monitor or may, adjust and meld, if you will. At the same time, though, I think it is important to understand that it was a document and a series of recommendations based on a lot of collaborative efforts amongst huge entities. I wouldn't want us to kind of overcomplicate the process by continually revisiting, but take a look at things as they are. But that also means that there isn't the opportunity to have adjustments or amendments, if you will, to that process. So right now, as the city action plan it's a series of recommendations and highlights and kind of a call to action for all of us for what we as a city would like to envision. Now, in terms of implementation, I think that's something we, as in those present on this call or a meeting, is something that we need to start developing of what are those next steps to make sure that come 15 years, when we look at this document, what have we managed to achieve on this kind of high list of things to go. So to answer your question shortly, yes, there's always an opportunity to make an amendment or supplement. Ultimately, it needs to be something that we, as a collective we, feel is an appropriate thing to add, as opposed to very particular, minute little fancies people have. It's hard to gauge since I don't know what exactly the person is asking, but I think we're very open and welcoming to making sure that what is being adopted and improved upon is something that is in everyone's best interest.
And is that the Planning and Zoning Commission that would recommend and actually adopt a change to the plan of conservation and development?
I think it would have to go in front of the commission in terms of, yes, those kind of recommended edits, since we are kind of the guardians of that. Yes.
Okay, thanks. Thank you very much.
No worries.
Councilman Sanchez.
Okay, I wasn't sure if anyone else had any questions. I do appreciate all the work, and I understand how time-consuming it is to work on such a plan. I do feel, though, that the majority here that has not seen this plan or had the opportunity to read or go through the plan you know, I just don't see how they can actually vote on it right away at this moment.
Councilor Sanchez, we're only on item 1. That's item 2.
I understand. So
Okay.
so what I'm proposing is a motion to postpone this until we see item number 2.
All right. So no, item number 1 is basically accepting the Planning and Zoning Commission annual report. We're accepting
so
it.
I'm just confusing myself. I apologize.
Yeah. That's okay. It's been a long day.
Because I mean,
me.
you know, the way I'm hearing this is that
Yeah.
if we support this, then there's actually a plan of suggestions that will be implemented. Am I not? Am I wrong, Joyce?
No, it's purely what is in front of me, and I can share my screen just to show you the document. Sure. It's simply a summary of what we've been up to. So everything has already happened, per se.
So this is your annual report.
And it's just a 3-page document. Is everyone able to see my screen?
Yes, we are.
Just simply highlighting the fact that people came, people went. We made some zoning edits. There was a plan of conservation development created and needs to be enacted. And that we have been meeting with a lot of people to talk about it. And that we as a commission and fellow members have gone through and met with a bunch of people to talk about Hartford and its zoning regulation.
Okay, my apologies. Now I understand.
Right, item number 1.
Through you, Chair, forgive me. I'm on point with you guys now.
No, Jimmy, it's been a long day. I'm on my not know how many cup of coffee, so I truly can relate. But could you keep that back up?
Yes, I apologize.
Because, you know, there was a couple questions. That's okay. I can always yeah, there is a couple of questions. If you go down to page 2, yes, I mean, you guys have been extremely busy, you know.
I would like to highlight a note. A lot of these efforts, and I think it really needs to be noted, is to the former chair, Sarah Bronin, who really spearheaded and engaged on a lot of things. I'm simply riding on her coattails, so I do want to stress that there are very big shoes to fill in terms of what she's left in terms of a legacy and efforts, and I don't want to minimize that at all, because thanks to her leadership, you know, a lot of meetings took place, a lot of people were met with, and a really beautiful kind of document, if you will, was created because of her efforts and those who are engaged in the city action plan process, otherwise known as the POCD.
Actually, you guys, you know, one of the things I saw on here, which was I was really curious about, is the redivision of land at Bowtie Theaters on New Park Avenue.
Yes.
What was all that?
So that's actually I'm personally very excited to see that kind of development going on, because again, it's taking a look at properties that we have here in Hartford and using and taking a look at best use practices. So as it was, Bowtie Cinema on New Park has abundant, if not excessive amount of parking. And so what the developer did, and Ms. Chambers, please correct me if I'm not summarizing this correctly, but in order to kind of maximize use on that lot, it was redivided so that some of that parking at that site could be transformed into a mixed-use development. So I think that's a really exciting opportunity, because you're dealing with complementary uses along that street. I think it's a great opportunity as an example of using infill of the abundance of parking lots we have here in the city. Yes, there is a conversation about best uses and how people move about the city, but in terms of really targeting one of the main elements of the city action plan, which is to encourage more development and more people living within the city of Hartford, that this particular move by this developer is an excellent example of creating a situation whereby more people can live in a higher density mixed use environment.
As I said, when I read it, I congratulate you guys for the zoning applications, because I know those take a very long time to go through. I looked at that. I also wanted was to ask you what was the congratulations also on the awards that the Planning and Zoning Commission has received.
Again,
also, you know, so it's
Ms.
fantastic.
Bronin, so.
Absolutely. Thank your past chair, Mrs. Bronin, and it's a great asset to actually see these awards being given to the city of Hartford. You know, makes me proud. One other thing is you guys wrote an endorsement for the Gold Rail project. What was that? I didn't understand that.
Let me recall. So that's basically, if I recall, it's, and it was in conjunction, I believe, with the RPA, and Ms. Chambers may be able to remember this a little bit better. It's ultimately about endorsing more use of rail in developments, and specifically within kind of the Northeast corridor from New York through this area. So it's not something that specifically impacts Hartford, but again, it's kind of a letter of endorsement saying that, look, we like seeing different types of transit developed, and that's why we endorse this.
Okay, I just want to acknowledge all the accomplishments. You know, so the community, we do have a couple of people from the community on listening, and also probably will end up watching the committee on our with our HPH television station a little bit later on. So just want to acknowledge all that information that's being shared with us is being also shared with the community of what the Planning and Zoning Commission has accomplished, you know, last year. You know, I was looking also, you guys met over 200 people, you know, attending different meetings. That is impressive. You know, going out in the community and meeting with the community. So I want to thank Ms. Chambers and the staff and everyone for coming out in the community and letting us know what's going on with planning and zoning. So those are the things I wanted was to highlight from your, you know, from your reports so the community can see all the accomplishment. So thank you so very much for sharing that. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Great. I'm not sure if anyone else have any other questions. I don't see any hands. Okay, Councilman Sanchez.
I'd like to make a motion to send it to council with a favorable recommendation.
Is there a second?
I would like to second that motion. I would like to second it, third it then, and third it by way of saying that we accept this report with commendation.
Absolutely. Thank you. So we have a motion on the floor. It's been properly seconded. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, I believe I would just like to hear all the council members of the committee will be voting. All those in favor? Great.
Aye.
Thank you. Great. Hearing no nays. Any abstention? Great. Hearing none. The report will be sent back to the overall council with a favorable recommendation of accepting and thanking the Planning and Zoning Commission and staff for this wonderful year report. I'm looking forward to seeing your report next year for 2021. So thank you, Ms. Josie, and thank you, Ms. Chambers, for all your efforts.
Thank you very much.
We have another item, the second item on our agenda is from Mayor Bronin with accompanying resolution adopting the City of Hartford's complete street plan. This plan will complement the bicycle plan and other documents provided a guide for transforming our city streets. The plan reflects approximately a year of effort by members of the Complete Street Task Force, led by the City Bike and Pedestrian Coordinator, Ms. Sandy Fry. This plan has been unanimously endorsed by the Planning and Zoning Commission for the City of Hartford, and this was item 2 on our February 22nd council agenda. Who do we have to speak on this item? Ms. Fry? Fry, and apologize if I pronounce your name incorrectly. You are the project manager working with Ms. Chambers on this project.
Yeah, I'm the bicycle and pedestrian coordinator for the city, and I lead our Complete Streets Task Force. I don't know if Amy or Randall want to say anything as lead-in to discussion of the plan.
No, I think the letter from the mayor pretty much sums up. I would note again that the plan did go before the Planning and Zoning Commission, but I think Sandy is the best person to speak about the process towards approval.
So I believe, Ms. Fry, if you don't mind, if John, I believe, has that report, if he can pull it up on the screen. So as you talk about it, I believe you have a presentation first. Is that correct? You may have a PowerPoint.
I do have a brief presentation if you would like that, just to sort of give context to the plan, and then we could dive into the plan to more details.
That would be great. Thank you so very much.
Okay, so John, you have to stop sharing and then I'll start.
So Sandy's going to share and then we're going to go in the plan.
Yeah, let me just pull it up. Wait a minute. There it is. Can you see it?
Yep, we're good.
Okay, now I just have to get my slideshow from the beginning. Okay, I don't know why I'm getting that. Okay, so I'm very happy to be with you to tell you about the Complete Streets plan that we developed over the past year. And Complete Streets, you're maybe somewhat familiar with the term Complete Streets, but it's really sort of a simple concept. The idea is that our streets are not built just for automobiles and motor vehicles, but they're also built for people who use transit, people who bicycle, people who walk. And so the idea behind the Complete Streets plan is to give us some guidance so that we can actually develop complete streets throughout the city with any of our projects. So if we have a roadway project, let's make sure we're making a complete street. And also let's have some proactive actions to complete the streets. So I'll just give you a quick overview first, why we are even developing a Complete Streets plan, what the process was to develop the plan. I'll give you a quick overview of some of the elements of the plan and then next steps once it's adopted. And then we can look at the document in detail if you'd like to do that. There are a few simple reasons why we were developing a Complete Streets plan. Number one, the Complete Streets policy that Council adopted in 2016 required that a Complete Streets plan be developed around the time that the Plan of Conservation and Development was updated. So it was really important to do it in 2020. But we want this Complete Streets policy to be a guide that policymakers, developers, other agencies, staff, and even residents can use to understand what we want our streets to look like. And ultimately, by serving all the roadway users, we will improve quality of life. And this diagram down here is just showing, some of the different users of our streets: motorists, public transit users, businesses, freight, pedestrians, young travelers, older travelers, people who have disabilities of some kind, and bicyclists. And so we're trying to address all those needs. The development of the plan was overseen by the Complete Streets Task Force. And I have to tell you, I'm very pleased with the Complete Streets Task Force and how it's developed since it was first formed in 2013 as a Safer Streets initiative. But we have more than 100 people who receive our meeting notices, and different people attend the meetings. I provide very detailed meeting minutes for each meeting so people can understand what we're doing. And, when I realized we needed to quickly create a Complete Streets plan at the same time that the POCD was being developed, I developed a very simple outline kind of document, and the task force really dove in to try to perfect the document. And people who are residents looked at it and thought about, what do I need this document to say as a resident to help me when I'm lobbying for things in my neighborhood? We had travelers represented on our committee. We had the downtown bid represented on our committee, the parking authority, several city departments. So it really helped us to flesh out the document itself. And it's not a document that I produced, but it's a document that that task force as a whole put together. By reference, the Complete Streets Plan includes the adopted bicycle plan. We didn't go as deep into bicycle issues because we already have a bicycle plan that was adopted in 2019. And we are following the plan of conservation and development hierarchy for how we address our transportation system. And that is look at pedestrian needs first, then transit users, then bicyclists, and then finally motor vehicles, sort of flipping on its head what our practice has been for, I think we could say 70 years since the 50s, where we've really allowed the motor vehicle to dominate. And the plan was endorsed by the Planning and Zoning Commission. We have 4 goal areas in the plan that fall under our vision statement. And the vision is that by ensuring that all city streets are complete streets, Hartford will be a place where choosing to walk, use public transit, or bike will be a safe, easy, and desirable option for anyone. So we don't want to just look at the fearless who are out on bicycles. We want the city to be accommodating all types of road users easily and safely. We have 4 goal areas, and our recommendations are organized into these goal areas. The first is improving safety and convenience for all road users. Second is completing bicycle and pedestrian networks. The third goal is to encourage multimodal transportation. And then finally, create streets that are livable, attractive, inviting, and well cared for. So before I jump into improving safety, I just want to show you some safety data, which I think is pretty telling about why we need to have a plan like this. If we look at all the crashes that happened in the city of Hartford from 1995 to 2019, 7% of the crashes that had injuries or deaths were pedestrian crashes. 93% were non-pedestrian. But if we look at fatalities only, all of a sudden we've tripled the pedestrian involvement. And it points out the importance of really thinking about how we make those pedestrians more safe on our roads. Another safety context I want to give you is regarding speed. If a person's hit by a car that's traveling 20 miles an hour, they have a 90% chance of surviving. If the speed increases to 30, they have only a 60% chance of surviving. And then if the speed increases to 40 miles an hour, they have just a 20% chance of surviving. So I point this out just so you understand as I talk later about the importance of speed in the safety context, which I think is pretty clear that, people are concerned about speeding vehicles relative to safety. So looking at the first goal area, improve safety and convenience. This is really the section of the plan that has the most recommendations. And one of the large areas that we address is consistent traffic signal policies. Right now, we have a mixture. You can go down Park Street and there are a lot of traffic signals don't even have a pedestrian signal head to let the pedestrian know when they should cross. We have a lot of other traffic signals where the only time a pedestrian can cross the street is when all the other traffic has stopped. And that leads to somebody goes up, they push the button, they get tired of waiting, they cross anyway, taking unsafe actions and also really annoying their drivers when the pedestrian light comes up and there's no one left there. So we've offered some standards which DPW has reviewed and they endorse. And what we'd like to do is, except for in special situations, the walk signal will come up when the parallel green comes up. So the pedestrian crosses with the parallel traffic. We would like to set this up where we give the pedestrians a head start. It's called a leading pedestrian indicator. So after the cross traffic gets a red light and before the parallel traffic gets the green light, the pedestrian signal would come up and allow people to cross. And we put in the plan where does this work and where wouldn't this work, to give guidance. Another big part of our recommendations are to improve safety at unsignalized crossings, because we have a lot of those. And there's been a lot of work done over the last 10 years identifying proven strategies that will improve safety. We wanted to get that all in this document, so it's very clear. The City of Hartford endorses these kinds of actions to improve safety at unsignalized crossings. We've also recommended standardized street markings. I don't like pretty streets in terms of markings on the street. I like markings on the street that tell the motorist and tell the pedestrian what's happening. So the nice broad bands of a continental crosswalk. And you can see some really nice ones over at Bushnell Park that were done as part of the Tiger Project, nice wide crossings. We don't want to be installing fake brick looking crosswalks that are invisible at night. That's a concern. So we're trying to standardize that. We're also pointing out that the more driveway openings we have, the more safety issues we bring up for pedestrians. We want to adopt speed policies. The state legislature is considering legislation that will give municipalities more power over setting their own speeds. And what we would like to do is have 25 miles an hour as the default speed limit. And you would have to really prove why the speed limit should be higher than that. Rather than the reverse. At this time, it's more, we have to beg the DOT to allow us to go to a lower speed limit. We're recommending some consistent transit amenity placement where shelters should be located. All bus stops should have a bus stop sign. All our pedestrian infrastructure should be fully ADA accessible. We need to have convenient bicycle parking. And then finally, the final recommendation for improving safety is that we need to educate road users on their rights and responsibilities. And this applies to bicyclists, pedestrians, and motorists. And we'd like to work with the Watch For Me CT campaign and also the Hartford bid to come up with a Hartford specific kind of campaign that gets the message across in Hartford through means that we can use to get that message across. So that's the improved safety and convenience area. Next area is, goal area is complete the bike and pedestrian networks. Now we have the bike plan with a lot of recommendations. We also have a traffic calming plan that was developed way back in 2005. Still has a lot of valid recommendations in it. What we want to do is pull all those plans together, do a lot of neighborhood outreach so we're sure we understand the problem areas in neighborhoods where people feel they're, oh, Amy just told me you can't hear me very well.
Okay, there you go. That's better. Yes.
Okay, sorry. I don't know why my microphone does that, but we need to do a lot of planning, and that will include outreach to the neighborhoods to be sure we really understand what their needs and concerns are. We think that the proposals we put together will include tactical urbanism, which is kind of quick fixes out on the road like we did at the corner of Main and Charter Oak to quickly slow traffic. Traffic calming will be very important. We're lucky we have a very good sidewalk grid, but sometimes the crossings are not well marked, they're not safe. And then we would create a prioritized list of projects and a 10-year plan for implementing. The next step is actually to complete the designs. We would like to, along with completing the designs, we'd like to create a complete streets design guide. So there's really a clear understanding of what our streets should look like to be complete. Then other tasks in this goal area are construction, then maintenance. That's something we have forgotten a lot of times in when we add new infrastructure. And then finally, we want to have staff training. We want all our engineers and planners who are working on any transportation projects to have a clear understanding of how we design effectively for pedestrians and bicyclists. Our third goal area is to encourage all travel modes. In Hartford, there are a number of people who have no other options than walking, biking, or using transit. But there are a lot of other people who could use those modes, but for various reasons find it difficult. We'd like to, with the schools, we'd like to get a Safe Routes to Schools program underway that encourages children to walk. And what Safe Routes to Schools does is it doesn't just say, come on, go out and walk. It diagnoses why is it that parents are not allowing their children to walk? Why do children not feel safe walking? And then putting in interventions that will correct those issues. We'd also like to work further with iQuilt on wayfinding signage, which can help people in walking. And the Health and Human Services Department would like to, in some of their efforts to improve physical activity and encourage more physical activity, they would like to have some signs that encourage people to walk, like that point out in a neighborhood, it's X number of steps to get to the entrance to the park, that kind of thing. And we're starting to work with them up in the neighborhood in between like Parker Memorial and Milner School to try to implement some of those ideas. And then we'd also like to continue to work promoting people using different means to get to work, either biking, walking, or transit when we're all going back to work again. And on that, we would work with other agencies. CT Rides, this is part of their function. And we just need to bring some of their message more specifically to Hartford. And finally, we think that a bike share program, the bike share program that we had a couple of years ago, Line Bike, really demonstrated that there is a latent demand for bicycling. If there are easily accessible bicycles out available to the public, they will be used. So that's an important element of encouraging alternate modes. And then the final goal area is to create livable streets. And part of the idea behind this is our streets make up a large percentage of our city. And if they're just expanses of pavement, aren't relieved by canopies of trees, don't have thought given to them as to trying to slow traffic down, make traffic speeds appropriate for the neighborhoods through which the road runs, then we don't have a livable city if we don't have that. So the areas that we're looking at under this goal area are, number one, actively manage parking. And Councilman Sanchez mentioned parking before, so that's an important element of any of the complete streets. We would like to implement green infrastructure, including street trees. So our complete streets plan recommends an investment in street trees on an annual basis. So it's a nice partner to the city's new tree plan, which is very aggressive in terms of adding more trees. Can you hear me? You can't hear me at all?
Yep, you're gone now. Hello? Yep.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
I have no idea why this happens. Wait, I unplugged my computer. Sometimes that helps. How about now?
No, you're still a little bit not work.
So could you hear anything I said?
Yes, we did.
On this page?
Yes, we did.
Do you need any more explanation?
Sandy, that's okay. No need to yell. We're getting there.
Okay.
I think we're good with this page. Just livable city streets. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Andy, I think it's when you turn your head to the right,
Oh, okay.
you lose your microphone. If you keep your head more to the left, we can probably hear you.
Okay.
Let's try that.
How's this?
Yeah, that's good.
All right. I was looking at you guys in the gallery view. I'll stop doing that. Okay. So next steps. For implementation, we tried to lay out what's required for implementation. We would like to utilize an on-call consultant for the first few years until we've built sufficient staff capacity. We want to collaborate with other departments, and the collaboration with Health and Human Services, I point that one out particularly because it's so different for a transportation program to recognize their common interest with the health department. And we think we can have really great impact on public health in Hartford with that collaboration. We know that sufficient funding will be needed to implement, and we're estimating that in the first 3 years, the total investment will be about $2 million to get plans in place. And then thereafter, 500,000 to 600,000 per year. And we need to do continuous evaluation to make sure that what we think will work really is working and we have impact going forward. So that is my presentation. And I'll stop sharing now. And if you want to open the plan and go through the plan, we can do that. I know Councilmember Surgeon mentioned that at the start.
Yeah, but I believe, let's see if the council members want to do this, the members, or they just want to go to question and answer. What say you, committee members? Hello?
What
was the question again?
I'm good so far, but I'll defer to anybody else.
Question and answers. Or we want to have her go through the plan a little bit in more detailed.
Yeah, I would like to see the plan. If it's okay
Then it would be
else.
John Gale, I believe, has it up on his screen. John, can you share with us? There you go.
You should have it up.
Yes, we do.
And tell me what page you want to go to, and I can go to it.
Okay, well, why don't we, do you guys want to direct to it, or do you want me to walk you through it?
I have my pages basically. What about the members? Go ahead, members. I can, you want to go to the pages, and because what you gave us was an overview. If you would like to basically just go through the highlights of the different pages of that corresponded with your overview, that should make a difference, I think.
Okay. Okay, so I just want to point out the cover art is from our Main Street downtown concept design project. And we're really hopeful that we can transform Main Street to a complete street that accommodates bicyclists, is more pleasant for pedestrians, but still accommodates the traffic. As we go through, pages 1 and 2 are 1, 2, and 3 are really sort of setting the stage for the plan. Why it is we wanted to develop a complete streets plan, what we think who we think it will be utilized by, and then we lay out the vision and goals. So again, just the figure showing what a complete street looks like. And it's important to understand complete streets are very context driven. So this is showing a commercial corridor and what a complete street would look like. If you're on a very quiet residential road, we probably wouldn't have any bicycle facility because a bicyclist would feel comfortable on that facility. We might be looking more at crosswalks and making intersections safe for people walking. But you can't just say, this is a complete street. That's why we're talking about developing a complete street design guide, because it's different by different streets, depending on the volume, the speeds, and the neighborhood through which the street goes. So you can keep going there. This little box out area shows the different organizations that were represented on our Complete Streets Task Force and contributed to the development of the plan. And it's wonderful. It's actually good now that we're virtual, more people are able to attend our meetings. So when we go back into the office, we will always have a virtual aspect to this meeting so we can maximize the number of people coming.
That's great.
And you know, as we look at the city of Hartford, we're in a good place for complete streets because we were developed at the time when people built neighborhoods in a more complete way. We have sidewalks on all our roadways, pretty much. We have a healthy transit system. We have a wonderful park system that can help link neighborhoods. So we have a lot of great basics to build upon. And then next page is starting the improved safety and convenience area. And what we try to do with this is just sort of set the stage. Why are we worried about this? One thing is we kind of gave if you look at the aerial view, you can see how much we gave our downtown over to highways. And the lower photograph there is showing an actual bicycle access onto the Buckley Bridge, where bicyclists and pedestrians are directed to cross that ramp traffic to get onto the Buckley Bridge. Most people don't do that because we feel comfortable doing that.
Yeah.
But what we really want to do is change our focus from our strict focus on the motor vehicle as being the element of transportation to remembering the other users. If we go to next page, we've got the safety statistics showing pedestrian versus non-pedestrian crashes and deaths. The lower diagram shows that most years our pedestrian deaths are less than motor vehicle, except for 2018. 2018 was a terrible year in the city of Hartford, where the sheer number, it wasn't just the percent, but the sheer number of fatalities for pedestrians was higher than motor vehicle fatalities. That's the only year. You can see most years it's different, very different than that. Next page, we show some statistics on how people get around, how do people get to work. And sadly, I was able to find statistics from 1990 out to the present, and you just see the bike bar is invisible. It's the little teeny blue bar at the very bottom. But walking has decreased in terms of how many people walk. Transit has decreased. The thing that's been positive is work from home has increased. But you can see people driving alone, that's the blue bar on top, that's just increased every time we get the data. And would like to try to help people make other choices. The following couple pages, we have a big discussion about our current setup with signalized and unsignalized intersections. We wanted people to understand that in Connecticut, we do things kind of funny, and you know this if you go to Boston or New York. You don't have to push a button and wait for a pedestrian light to come up anytime you cross the street. Often as not, it comes up regularly on the cycle, and it's not a wholly separate cycle. So we want to change some of those things. That's a big part of our strategy related to traffic signals, that we want to convert some of our signals to
I'm having a hard time.
Concurrent is what it's called. So this first area, 1A, is mostly traffic signal policies.
Sandy, can I ask you a question? The top of that page, it said that the Highway Association have about 9 available ideas, but the city has only adopted some.
No, you know what? That's when we get to improve safety at unsignalized crossings, page 10.
Ah, okay.
It's the Federal Highway Administration developed this guidance. The Connecticut DOT did not adopt all pieces of the Federal Highway guidance, but the pieces they didn't adopt are the things that make a lot of sense in a city, like reducing the number of lanes, going from 4 lanes to 3 lanes, as we've done on many streets. So in looking at the 9 countermeasures that FHWA recommends, we decided they were all applicable to the city of Hartford. And we wanted to make that clear because we know this Connecticut DOT document is out there and might be relied upon to reduce sort of our toolbox. So in this section, we show each of the 9 countermeasures: high visibility crosswalks, raised crosswalk, providing advanced yield lines. Yeah, I'm ahead of you. This is the signals. I'm a couple pages there. Yeah, so high visibility crosswalk.
Are we past page 9 as yet? Because I've got one, I missed a.
Okay, go back to 9. We passed it.
I apologize.
That's okay.
I missed something. And talk about the overnight flashing signal. I
Yep.
didn't understand, for 1 hour before or 1 hour, it comes on at 1 a.m. to dawn. I didn't quite comprehend that. I didn't understand how that
Okay, what the city does with a lot of its traffic signals right now is overnight, the side street goes to red flashing, the main street goes to yellow. So what happens is on the main street, people aren't going to stop.
Okay.
Okay, so what we're suggesting is in those instances, we want to go to all red. So each direction is flashing red, and it will slow down the traffic, because some of the big problems we have with horrible pedestrian crashes is late at night when the signals are flashing.
Mm-hmm.
And we're hoping to get away from the flashing entirely at some point, but like when the signal equipment is upgraded, it will have better things we can do overnight with the signals as to just going to the flashing mode.
Okay. Thank you. I apologize. I'm
No, they're
really,
fine.
I'm really trying to understand how much work you guys did. So those are my questions to make me understand a little bit better.
No, I'm glad you have questions.
Okay, good.
Okay, so our 9 countermeasures: high visibility crosswalks, raised
Yep.
crosswalks, advanced yield lines. And I don't know if you've seen any of the pedestrian crossings that have been marked
Yes.
with these. They're very effective. They're telling the motorist, if you see somebody at that crosswalk, stop here, way back from the crosswalk. They make this crosswalks much more visible. Another tool is the in-crosswalk sign, and we
Yeah,
have
but
a
the only
large
thing,
number of those.
Sandy, the only thing I didn't see in the city is the advanced information before you get to the crosswalk. I've never
You haven't seen
any.
that? I thought there were some that were upgraded on Franklin or
Okay.
Maple. I do know there's a Franklin Maple project that's going out to bid. DPW did the design in the next week or two, and they are showing these advanced yield lines. They have them at all the intersections there.
Okay.
And we'll have that Bartholomew Avenue. We have that project going out. So you'll definitely see it in the new street projects.
And I can comment that I have definitely seen this in West Hartford. They
I saw,
have
exactly. That's where I saw it.
Fern
But
Street and Asylum Avenue. They've done these markings already.
I have seen them in West Hartford, and that's why I questioned. I didn't see them in Hartford, but I will go down Franklin and take a look at it because I've never seen them.
Coming soon to an intersection near you.
We just finished the streetscape on Albany, on Route 44, Albany Avenue, and I would love to see, that what is it, shark teeth information there. That's a good idea.
Yeah, it really makes it a lot more visible. Okay, the in-street pedestrian crossing sign is also trying to make it more visible and to remind motorists to yield to pedestrians in the crosswalk. The city has about 100 of these that go out before snow season. And we're trying to come up with a system where we can have stewards in the neighborhood who would take them in when the snow is coming. But then when things dry up a little bit, they could put them out. what DPW has to do is really just wholesale. They take them out and then they bring them in when the snow's coming. So we'd like to improve that to be able to have them on the street more. Next tool is a curb extension. This is up at on Vernon Street near Trinity. But what a curb extension does is it narrows the crossing distance, and it also makes the road feel narrower, so cars slow down. And we have painted these on Hampton Street in the north end, and we'll be adding delineators along them to narrow the street. So we can test that in a lower cost way at that location. They can be very attractive when they're permanently installed. The next item is a pedestrian refuge island where you have a median in the center of the street and cut out a piece of the median so that pedestrians can cross half the street at a time and wait to cross the rest of the street. Next is the rapid rectangular flashing beacon. We have this up on Market Street, up near the hotel, and also I think some Travelers people. It's really there, and Travelers helped install that. It's there to aid people who are going from parking to their workplace. And it's very bright. We also have it on Prospect near Yukon. And then Road Diet is where you actually reduce the number of lanes and can provide for bicyclists, or sometimes by reducing the number of lanes, even without the bike lane, what you've actually done is move the traffic further away from the sidewalk. You have a little buffer area there. And the final item is the pedestrian hybrid beacon. This is a traffic signal. We don't have any of these in the city of Hartford. I think there might be a couple along the Farmington Canal Trail. The way this works is all the way over on the left on the top, you can see usually it's dark, nothing lit. But if a pedestrian comes along and pushes the button, it will flash yellow. So the traffic will see the flashing yellow. Then it goes to steady yellow, which everybody knows that means the light's going to red. Then it's the top two lights are steady red for the time that it takes a pedestrian to cross the street. And the pedestrian will see a walk light at that time. After that time has passed, the light goes to flashing red, which a motorist knows that means stop, proceed with caution. And then it goes back to dark. This is something you can use where you've got heavy pedestrian flow, heavy traffic, but it doesn't justify installing a full traffic light. This can be used.
So are we planning on getting any for the city?
At this point, you know, in Connecticut, they've been applied to trail crossings. We have designed one into the Main Street downtown project. So a mid-block crossing near the fire station in between Buckingham and Park Street, we would install this. So the pedestrian can come up, push the button, and then the traffic stops for them. So they're not running across. Does that make sense? Do you understand how that works?
That makes lots of sense, but we have some very highly trafficked route, like Route 44, Albany Avenue, which is both you know, a highway, state highway, and a neighborhood street. You know, a signal like this would be perfect for that, you know, because it will help as the speeding cars are coming.
Sorry, my landline just rang.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, it can't be installed at an intersection, because if it's an intersection, you need to have a light on the side street.
Okay.
I know that Seattle actually does some signals where they'll have a stop sign on the side street and a traffic signal on the through street, but that we can't do that in Connecticut. So this would be appropriate if we have a mid-block crossing.
Got you.
And we can look at that if there's some potential locations. Next recommendation is just with regard to mid-block crossings that we really want to think about mid-block crossings where there is demand, where we know people cross. And it's helpful if we can provide curb bump outs to make the pedestrian more visible and to shorten the crossing distance. And this final in crosswalk yield signs is just talking a little bit more about the stewardship of those. So next is, I'm showing here, that's the Continental crosswalk. That is what we really would like to have most of our crosswalks look like, because it is highly visible. Research has proven that it's visible and it's safer. There was a Safe Routes to Schools program that was developed back in 2011, and it developed a standard marking pattern for school zones, which hasn't been fully implemented, and we'd really like to get that in place.
Who would implement that? Would that be the Public Works? What department would implement?
Public Works. And Public Works over the past year, they really were moving forward with an aggressive street marking program. So we had a lot of crosswalks that had come to our attention at the Complete Streets Task Force that they were able to mark this year, some things along Broad Street. So they have, you know, if they repave a street, they're going to be doing the markings, but they're also trying to go out and refresh the markings where they're not doing a street paving. So we'd like them to do the school zones as part of that.
Got you.
Okay, next page. And this is just addressing what we've begun, a proactive program to mark crosswalks. And we want crosswalks marked on all legs of an intersection, unless there's a valid reason that it would be unsafe to do that. And then we want the stop bars to be in advance of the pedestrian crosswalk, so pedestrians are visible. Driveway openings, we'd like to limit those and limit the driveway widths in accordance with our zoning regulations. The next area, adopting speed policies. This has several elements to it. Number one is trying to lower the speed limits, establishing a default speed limit at 25 miles an hour. And downtown, there are some streets that should have lower speeds than 25. In school zones, we would like to have 20 miles an hour. Right now in the state of Connecticut, you could quite easily establish school zone speeds of 25 miles an hour, but that still is fairly rapid around a school. So we'd like to get permission to go to 20. I know that Stamford has received permission for that, so we'd like to do that.
Okay.
Now, we want to regularly monitor the speeds, see what kind of impact we're having. You know, I did a project recently where we monitored speeds and traffic volumes for 48 hours on 4 streets in the city, Babcock Affleck, Beacon, North Beacon, Hampton Street, and Ashley Street. With the exception of Beacon and North Beacon, each one of those had at least one car going faster than 66 miles an hour in a 48-hour period. And Beacon, North Beacon was in excess of 46. It's really shocking. And, you know, that really affects everyone's sense of safety, and actually affects safety when cars are speeding like that.
Sandy, can I ask you why the city had to resubmit the request again to OSTA to lower the traffic speed? What happened? Why did they have to resubmit?
We sent the request. It was a map and a list of the streets that we wanted to change, but they wanted us to use their form to submit that. And that all happened around the time, you know, we had a transition from Jim Ford as our traffic engineer. He was really sort of spearheading it. And then he left the city and we thought everything had gone through and it hadn't. So DDS filled out the application forms, but there was the application requires that there's some engineering analysis that be done. And this is why we really want the state legislation to change who gets to set the speeds. Right now, the Office of State Traffic Administration sets the speeds on every local road in the state. And that is who we have to apply to in order to make any change. And it's a difficult process. And one of their problems with the downtown was they didn't want to set a speed on any road segment that was shorter than, I forget whether it was 1,000 feet. So Pratt Street, they were saying to us, you can't set a speed limit on Pratt Street because it's too short, which doesn't really make sense. So we haven't worked through those issues of shorter street segments.
Okay. I'm not quite sure if the committee is, if this is just regular. Oh, I'm sorry. I've got chat information I'm reading. I apologize. Go ahead, Santi.
Okay. Yeah. Are there some questions that I should answer?
There's a complete street task force brought into loop to evaluate the recent hit and run on the avenue, on Albany Avenue. Is there regular routine collaborate with the Hartford Police Department to evaluate fatalities? If that can
that is something, that's something that we are just starting to put together through the office of the Director of Operations, and trying to come up with ways that we can be that we want to have a program that's both proactive. It recognizes the kind of safety problems we have for pedestrians, and we go out and try to fix those. But also we want it to be reactive when a crash occurs, that we get a report that we can deal with and try to assess both DPW, DDS, try to understand what issues there might be with the roadway that led to the problem, what changes might be able to be made. We've been talking to the police department. We have to figure out a way that they can share information with us that's kind of anonymized, because when they're in the midst of their investigation, generally they don't release that information to anybody else. So we're trying to figure out a way that they can get the appropriate information to us, and we can start drawing some conclusions based on how it happened.
And I think one last question, somebody wants to know, did your plan has an inclusion of Hartford resident businesses of color in the execution of the plan, including staffing?
Yeah, we would want to include everyone. And, you know, we didn't put a specific equity goal in here, but equity is really woven into every one of these goal areas, that we need to be reaching out to the neighborhoods, understanding their needs. But we had several, you know, all these city departments that are listed, a number of city residents, including persons of color. On the business side, we maybe did not have a lot of small businesses represented. We had the bid, which, you know, is sort of the larger downtown businesses. Travelers was involved. But the task force is open to anyone who wants to attend. They just have to reach out. I add them to the list.
Okay, so I think there's some council people may want to ask some questions. And if you don't mind, after the meeting, maybe if I can reach out to you, if you don't mind sharing your contact information with me, because we have about, we've only gone through half of the plan, and I've got another 27-page highlighted. So if you don't mind,
that'd be great. And I can put that in the chat right now too, my contact
and so
information.
If you don't mind, if we can reach out to you, and then we can answer, you know, I can finish going through this, but I think some of the committee members would like to get into this conversation.
Councilwoman Sturgeon, if I may, I just wanted to piggyback on the question of equity, and I do see that there was a comment as well about the time of the Complete Streets meetings.
Yes.
So I wanted to add to Sandy's response that, you know, one of the things that we've been talking about a lot as a division has been how we are more intentional about our outreach and engagement with communities. And, you know, some of that obviously as evidenced by our conversation a bit earlier around zoning, but I think that there's opportunity because staff are attending all of those monthly meetings, not just NRZ meetings, but other organization meetings, to make a point to share some of that information associated with other projects that we have going on. The staff has been doing that, with regard to, for example, the Arrowhead RFP and things like that. And I think that there's an easy avenue for us to continue to do that with regard to items that are, brought up in the Complete Streets task force. In addition, we've been talking about other ways in which we can make sure that we are taking opportunity and time to educate the public on, on policies. And I think that kind of making for more digestible documents that can be circulated and left, in places like the library to share information is going to be a really important part of creating equity around the execution of this plan and other plans that we establish in the future. The Complete Streets Task Force does meet during the day, and I, want to make sure that we address the question and concern about residents who may not be able to attend that meeting. The immediate response that we have actually implemented as of late has been to add meeting minutes from the task force to meeting info, so that information around the discussions that take place are at least available to people. That is something that we implemented new in 2021. And so in addition to our other commissions, that information is online. But like I said, I think, there's opportunity for us to try to, go beyond that and to be more intentional around the ways in which we engage people, because we do need to acknowledge that not everyone has the opportunity to set aside an hour and a half out of their workday to participate in those meetings.
Thank you, Amy, for clarifying that. And thank you for knowing that, as the community and residents listen to our committee meeting, you are aware that they would like to be involved, especially, when decisions are made like this, that's going to affect the entire community. Any other council members, comments, questions? Can't see anyone. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilman Sanchez, go ahead, sir.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Chair. My first question, and I think you touched on it, is, but basically this is about the Complete Street Task Force. Do you have a roster, and in that roster, are there business owners that were part of the task force, including city residents on your roster?
We have a lot of city residents. Sometimes I don't know exactly who people are. Like recently, Amy forwarded the meeting notification to a couple people, so I take those people's email information and add it to my my list for notifying people. But I don't know all the people who are who participate as residents of the city. There are a lot of residents. I'll tell you that Transport Hartford has done a lot of outreach to engage people and suggest that they join the committee.
So the Transport Hartford, do you think they might have that information as far as the city residents and from what neighborhood they came from, as well as the demographics, right? But also, especially the business owners, small businesses especially, if you can provide that for us, it would be helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I could give you a list, my email address list, but I don't have all that other information. We kind of take all comers
Okay.
For the committee.
So if any way possible, I'm interested to see who is part of that task force.
I think we can share the contact list, the names and contact list.
Yeah, yep.
Okay.
Some of them I only have an email address, so it's hard to know exactly who they are.
Okay, but the task force, how many members are on the task force?
There are over 100 people that I communicate with on a monthly basis. to let them know what's happening, and they are all welcome to attend.
Okay, and so it's not just a group of 9 or 12.
No. So what's shown here is our January meeting, all the people who attended, and like
Jimmy, I see your name on the list.
There he is.
Yes, so my name may be on the list, but I only had a couple of conversations with Sandy Fry, so I was never at the task force meeting to participate in how we're going to plan.
No,
this.
you were at that one. I wouldn't have put
Jimmy,
you down
you were
if
at
you
the
weren't
meeting.
there.
You signed up.
But now, my interpretation of a task force is that it's a certain group from different neighborhoods, and then everyone else that's not on the task force can attend the meeting. But you're telling me that this task force is anyone who attends.
So
Yep.
it's a little bit of a misnomer, Councilman Sanchez. The Complete Streets Task Force is an open meeting and kind of ongoing open membership sort of meeting. It's not meant to be any type of specific steering committee for a group of people appointed to it.
Okay, I appreciate that. And I do remember my last meeting with Sandy Fry, we were talking about the path, for example, through Kinney Park, where, we can create a bike trail or some type of trail where, residents don't have to go around 5 blocks to get home. They can just cut through the park. So that's one of my few attendants. But moving forward, with the graph that you had about the incidents or accidents, what is considered non-pedestrian?
Oh,
Right, you just passed it.
yeah. Okay.
Right there.
So this is from a database that gives us information on motor vehicle crashes, and they categorize whether they're motor vehicle, pedestrian, or bicyclist. The bicyclist was so few that we didn't break those out separately.
Okay,
We really, fortunately, we have low bicycle crash data, but that's also because we don't have as much bicycle use as we might like.
Okay, so this isn't particularly focused on Hartford then?
No, this is Hartford. This is Hartford data.
Okay.
This is Hartford.
Okay, so then, and knowing that, we have a speeding issue throughout the city, and I'm sure every other town around us, I will say, I'm a bicyclist as well. I haven't been active lately. I am interested. I truly love the plan that you have, especially when it goes down to, the mayor corridors like Albany Avenue, Main Street, and Market Street, as you mentioned. And I like to focus Albany Avenue at this moment. What I do appreciate in your plan, it shows the bump outs for what they call the traffic calming. And this is part of the plan, right, throughout the city on the major corridor.
Yeah, we include them where we can, yes.
Okay. Now, I'm just going to go directly to the issues that's been brought to me as well as other council members. And it's the issue where the bike lanes has become a priority over the parking lanes. And that has caused a negative effect for our small businesses. Now, mind you, I support bike lanes, but when it interferes with our taxpayers here in the city and it causes an issue with their businesses, that's a concern. So, for example, on Weathersfield Avenue, I love the way it was done, where the parking space is still existing and the bike lane is, so you have the curb, parking, and then a bike lane. So that I can understand it and is feasible. But
well, you have that on one side of the street. On the other side of the street, you don't have parking.
Right.
That was how we were able to implement that. And that was in discussion with the NRZ. And likewise, the others, we've talked with the NRZ, and Amy and I have talked more recently about sort of a standardized way that we will address those issues.
Well, when you say standardized, that makes it permanent. And then that's really not applicable to all the streets that we have in the city of Hartford.
No, I'm talking about when we have a project where we're planning to remove parking from one side of the street so that we can get bike lanes on each side of the street.
Yes.
We would go to the NRZ, and I think, Amy, I'm looking back at my notes as to.
Yeah. So I think this would speak to your question, Councilman Sanchez, previously about outreach. I think the answer is, in the past, we've not done a great job of communicating with businesses in particular, but I would say property owners when some of these projects go on. When we have larger streetscape projects, there's more of a formalized engagement process, but some of these smaller projects have not had the level of outreach that we would like to see and that we intend on implementing moving forward. So one of the conversations that Sandy and I have been having when it comes to these projects, whether there are projects that are being implemented by development services and acknowledging that sometimes these are projects that are designed by DPW instead, that we're in communication with one another and that we're creating a better path towards engaging the property owners who are impacted, those that are directly impacted. So one of the things that we have discussed, is creating, and I think when Sandy said standardized, I think she was referring to like more standardized outreach to property owners, because we've not been consistent because of the different types of projects themselves. So not necessarily standard application to the roads, but standard outreach to property owners. But one of the things was obviously making sure that we're, bringing these up when we're attending NRZ meetings, that we're creating space to answer questions in those forums and in the other community meetings that the staff attend, but as well making sure that at the very least there's a notice that goes out to property owners ahead of time with contact information, so that if they have questions or concerns, they have someone to reach back out to at the city and to engage with in conversation about what those concerns are, so that, to your point, those designs don't get put down, without anybody having either A, advance notice that is happening, or B, opportunity to raise concerns that they may have.
I appreciate that, Amy. So knowing that you've had conversation with the NRZs, and I am a member of my NRZ, I do know for a fact that we don't normally, it's very difficult to do that outreach, especially to businesses, especially to residents who live with, deep in the neighborhood. And a majority of those residents and business owners are completely unaware. And I would like to see input from them when it comes to the bike lanes. Everything else I'm fine with. I really appreciate it. I have seen these signs, the walk signs, the big yellow signs in the middle of the street, which I think is very beneficial. It's very, it's a bright yellow that no one can drive by and not notice. And I think it's very effective, including the bump outs. So for example, though, Park Street, let's say, is a narrow street. You have a lot of businesses there, and there's really no room for a bike lane. How do you handle that situation? What's the conversation on that?
Yeah, where it's physically not possible, it can't be done. So we don't, I got my bike plan behind me, let me see.
And I think the word that Sandy used before was context sensitive, Councilman. Did you hear that, Sandy?
Yeah, and Park Street from Main to about Laurel is not recommended for bike lanes because there's not sufficient width for everything that needs to happen there. So in the bike plan, we tried to be cognizant of the characteristics of the roads where we were making the recommendations.
Okay, and in that situation, will we have a signage on, let's say, on Park Street, where motorists will respect the bicyclists right of way? so that they can travel in the lane as well.
I think we're thinking that bicyclists might choose parallel routes if they're traveling a distance. And if they're on Park Street because they're destined for Park, then we don't at this point have a proposal to put sharrows on the street there. I mean, that's something that could be done. It's not clear. What sharrows really do, where sharrows are useful, is to put them on the street and it tells the bicyclist, here's where you should ride so you don't get hit by an opening car door where a car is parked along the street. That's where they're most effective. Wow, thank you.
Right, so that what I'm looking at on my screen, I see that on Fairfield Avenue, but it's the entire lane is what I'm asking. So that will be implemented.
In some cases, we're not just going to go out and put them down on all streets because then you lose the effectiveness.
Okay, so now Maple Avenue is an example that I will be sharing, and that is that, for example, First and Last Tavern, there used to be parking in front, and I'm not talking about the bakery. They shut down because of COVID, unfortunately. But the existing First and Last used to be a parking lane. It was converted to a bike lane. You have 4 individuals. This is just what happened a few weeks ago. And they each got a $75 ticket. And all they did was to go in, pick up their orders and leave. And unfortunately, they were tagged. How can we correct a situation like that when Maple Avenue itself is not, in my opinion, is not wide enough, or we have to, at least put back that parking on the side where most businesses are, and then put the bike lane on the other side, which is on the east side, where there's minimal business.
That implementation was based upon a parking survey that showed that the parking was used less than 50% of all the on-street parking. And it seemed in that survey, when we looked at the entire length where we wanted to put the bike lane, that more of the parking was taking place on the east side than on the west side. And that's why we made that decision. So that can be reassessed, whether it ought to be flipped.
I would like to see that reassessed, please. And is that the procedure on other streets? If there's an issue with businesses, bike lanes and parking, can that also be reassessed? It's not just strictly to Maple Avenue, I'm sure.
What other locations is this a concern? I've not heard of other locations.
I will send you an email on that list.
Okay.
And my last question, was there a comparable study with other cities the size of Hartford that utilize this type of bike lane system?
Oh, yeah. The kind of facilities we've recommended are based on extensive experience throughout the country with those types of facilities. And in the bike plan, what we did, our first step in the bike plan was to look at, for streets of various traffic volume or traffic speed, what is the appropriate facility? So the facilities were matched to the characteristics of the roadway.
Okay, so, I really appreciate that, the staff putting this plan together and looking to implement it. But I do have issues when it comes to these bike lanes, and I like to see what can be done to readdress this issue with the bike lanes.
Yeah, and the bike lanes really aren't addressed in this complete streets plan. They're addressed in the bicycle plan that was adopted in 2019.
Right, I was part of that. I remember voting on it. I support it. As I said, I love riding bikes. Haven't done it in a while. Looking forward to it, but I will tell you, I am afraid to ride a bike right now from home to work because of all the speeding that's going on, and there's quite a bit of folks out there that has no respect for stop signs or traffic lights or what have you. So, even with a bike lane, I still wouldn't feel safe, unfortunately. But everything else in this plan, I think is great. I think it's beneficial to the city. But I really would like to readdress this bicycle lane and also make sure that we have a true outreach to our small businesses.
Well, and I'm sure as we implement both the bike plan and the complete streets plan, there will be times where we have to reassess something that's done, and we'll take a look at that.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other council members? Can't see everyone. Any other questions?
I'd
There
like
was
to
one-
make a statement,
Sure.
Madam Chair. I'm just sitting here listening, and I really cannot stress enough meetings that are held at times when people are available. You know, the basics of community organizing is 101 is you meet the people where they're at. And having, no offense to anybody, having minutes available and stuff like that, it's just not appropriate. And when I look at the list of people, the small list you put up, first of all, I'd love for people, whoever's job it is, to keep a list of the people who come to the meeting. I think that would be appropriate to know. I know it's just another thing, but when I look at the list of the people that was put up, you know, it's pretty bike centric, and I understand it's about streets and bikes, so that's why it is. But you know, I think the question that, you know, held during business hours is not neighborhood friendly at all, or small business friendly. You know, they can't leave their businesses. So the input from that group, and I've heard a lot of the same thing, my council colleague. I mean, I'll just use where I work for an example. They put in a bike lane. All the staff parking was taken away. It's been a nightmare for us.
Where is that?
On Sheldon Street.
Okay, that bike lane, that one went in like in the mid 2000s, didn't it? That was an early round. I wasn't with the city then. I
I'm
believe
not
that
blaming
was.
it on you, Sandy. I'm
Yeah.
just making
No,
a
I'm
comment
sorry. It's,
of that when it happens
Yeah.
sometimes, and I watch out the window and there aren't many bikers that go down the street. So, but back to, I won't use it about myself. I'm back to having people included, to have a diverse conversation, that certainly people come to meetings because they have a self-interest. So if the people coming are all like-minded, and that's great when it's great, you're only getting a part of the conversation. And if you have it at a time for people who can't be there, you're only having a part of the conversation. And I find this is just really important for me. And that's why some of this I take with a grain of salt, because I don't feel it's as comprehensive. And again, this isn't like, hey, you, Sandy, hey, you, whatever. I'm just saying my opinion on what the result is. And that's my comment. Thank you.
so what do you find is the better time to hold a meeting?
Well, Sandy, for people who work, it wouldn't be during the day. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
if you go back to meetings, they need to be at a time when people can be there. They need to have a way to get there. They oftentimes need to be fed. They oftentimes need to, want someone to come out to a meeting. And I'm not talking about COVID times. I mean, let's all hope we go back to a time where we're not doing this, because, but you need to meet people where they're at. And it's great when you can have an easy meeting, but to me, that usually means it's an easy meeting. You really need to think about who you want at the table, and that would be times that aren't there. I don't know, daycare, translation, just all the things that put barriers for people to meetings.
Yeah.
And then I'm done.
Now that's helpful. And we've been
jump in, Sandy. I think that the function of the Complete Streets Task Force has changed a bit over time. And I think that, taking that into account, definitely, Councilwoman, what you're saying with regard to, modifying the time so that more members of the public, more residents, and more people of color, and there's more diversity from an economic standpoint as well in the meeting, that's something that's very important, and particularly as we address how its function has changed. So I think I can speak for everyone at DDS when we say we appreciate that feedback, and we'll follow up.
I believe Councilwoman Bermudez have a couple of questions.
Yep, thank you. So thank you for the presentation. It's very thorough. And, you know, we've been talking about complete streets as a city for the past 30 years. So it's been a long time coming. And for folks, I used to bike a lot before I had my daughter, but for folks like my husband who bike every single day, even when it's snowing outside, and that's his main mode of transportation, he's like, you know, Wiz, like I came home tonight by the grace of God because I nearly died because we don't have any bike lanes. So the fact that this issue is still something that we still haven't figured out as a city when other capital cities got it right a long time ago, even when you travel outside of this country, like it's about time, right? Like it's about time that we voted on something for the complete streets. And we can't afford to see other deaths. If you all recall, this summer, there was a lot of attention in one particular bike accident that occurred on Franklin Avenue. And unfortunately, you know, the cyclist passed and it was his main mode of transportation. And the list goes on and on and on. And so there are many people who have sat in meetings for a very long time and are extremely frustrated because when they go to the meetings at night, and they've attended these meetings for a very long time, for years, nothing's happened. When they go to the meetings during the daytime, nothing happens. And so what I'm trying to say is that I hope that members of this committee, when we vote this out, we don't say we're going to vote it unfavorably for this and that reason, because we need a complete streets plan. It's about time.
Any other council members? I can't see. Oh, yes. Councilman Sanchez, go ahead, sir.
Yes, I appreciate that, Councilwoman Bermudez, and I do agree with you wholeheartedly. But I will say that it's still important to get into our neighborhoods to see what they truly want, as well as speaking to our businesses. If this affects them in a negative way, then there's a concern. Now, I do agree with you with the, you know, it's unfortunate with the accident that happened on, I believe it was Wethersfield Avenue. Now, on Wethersfield Avenue, mind you, there is a bike lane and it wasn't utilized. So there's different scenarios and it's unfortunately, it was a negative situation there. But I still believe that we need to address everyone who are stakeholders. And, you know, it's just important that we engage with, you know, again, the residents, what they want, who are really the people that lives in the city of Hartford, are small businesses that affects them negatively when it comes to the parking and their customers. And I'm not trying to make this about, you know, not trying to be biased at all whatsoever. But at this moment, I don't feel that is proper that our businesses, our small businesses and our residents within our neighborhoods has not addressed this issue and brought their concerns or if they favor this or not. I'd like to see that outreach.
Councilman Gale.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to compliment the Complete Streets Task Force. I think I heard Sandy Fry say that this started in 2013. That's 8 years. And that's 8 years of a lot of people's input. I've been to these meetings and there are a lot of people that have participated in these meetings. And a lot of residents have participated in these meetings. And I want to stress that adopting a plan doesn't eliminate the ability to address the particular issues that, for instance, Councilman Sanchez has raised. Those issues would still be addressed, but I think adopting the plan just sets the priorities for your various departments when they're moving forward. I don't think anything's written in stone, but I do think it's very important, and I certainly second what Councilwoman Bermudez said, and I hope my colleagues will agree. I think it's very important that we move a plan forward. And what we are doing in moving the plan forward is saying to the residents of Hartford, we've heard you. I have to say that I've heard a lot of residents over many, many years talk about walking. And remember, who's this city for? We live here. This city's for us, those that live here. This, I mean, clearly our businesses have to make some money, and they make money from people that come in from out of town. But I don't exist to create a parking space for a guy that went out of town. We just had a whole discussion about parking spaces and a whole consideration about, you got to think about it at some level. What kind of a city do you want? And I think this plan is setting up, again, I don't think it's an immutable course. It's not something that can't be changed. This plan doesn't say there will be a bike lane on Maple Avenue. It doesn't say it has to be on one side or the other. What it says, though, is that we're asking our planners, we're asking DPW, we're asking the police, we're asking fire, when they are doing things, to think about everybody. And I hope you will take that into consideration in thinking about this plan, that it's just designed to broaden, to expand how we look at our streets in our city of Hartford, including making sure that the streets work for our small businesses. I don't think anybody's trying to cut our small businesses out of anything. And I clearly don't think that there's any desire to elevate one group over another group, but there is a desire to make a more livable city. I think we all want a city where we feel more comfortable, where we walk around more, where everybody communicate, especially once post-COVID is here, where we commune with each other. I mean, the most exciting places in the world for me to walk around are those cities that have vitality. You hear me mention this all the time. I want to walk around. I want to walk down Albany Avenue. I want to walk down Maple Avenue. And mind you, Wethersfield Avenue is chaotic right now. And if a plan like this can help some of those streets become a little calmer, some of those streets become safer, some of those streets therefore become more livable, that's, I think, what we all want. So, in saying that, I certainly want to move this forward. I'm happy to let it stay in committee if you think you want to, it needs some refinements. But I don't know that the specific concerns I've heard would result in any refinements. This is not a specific document. This is not a document that's mentioning any specific street. So I would really like to be able to move this forward back to council with a favorable recommendation. I'm kind of hoping that we all agree that there's been a ton of work by the people that, we hire staff, and we've got 3 of them here who have put a lot of time and energy. And if you go back and you look at that list of people who come to these meetings, they include a lot of our staff. You're talking about people that we have hired to do just these things, to look at all of these things and to put together plans that work for the city of Hartford. So that's my own thought on it. And I would respectfully make a motion then that we send this back to council with a favorable recommendation.
I've got a couple comments before I continue with your motion, Councilman Gale. I just want to commend Ms. Fry on her diligence in putting this plan together, because I actually truly read the entire thing, believe it or not, and I was very fascinated, and I can see some good ideas for a community, for a city in here. But one of the things I've always championed, and that is getting community buy-in. That's it's a heartfelt emotion for me. And so one of the things I would have loved to have seen is, once this plan was put together, going out to the different communities and do a presentation and get buy-in from the community. That's important. Some of the comments from residents who have joined the meeting feel that, seniors and so on and so forth are not really taking consideration in this plan. They feel that the bike plan is taking more consideration over the actual seniors in this community. So those are some of I would like you to hear some of those comments from the different neighborhood. You know, I think this plan is great for adoption because I see some things I know I would love to see in my neighborhood. I love the signage. I love this school plan of, you know, having a walk route for kids. So those are some great ideas. I would just like to see some more community buy-in for this plan. So approving it and then going out to the community and saying, you know, this is what the city has decided. I'd like to see it the other way around. I'd like to see, you know, ground up more than top down. So before my comment, Councilman Gale had a motion on the floor. Councilman Gale, you had a motion on the floor?
Yes, I did. And we could certainly have discussion on the motion. I'd love to hear comments from staff on your comment, Madam Chair. But my motion was to send this back to council with a favorable recommendation.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. And the discussions that I said, that was my discussion, Councilman Gale, you know, where I would like to see this this go back out to the community, you know, get the community buy-in and then bring this back, because I can see buying into this. I want to be able to also say that the business and the residents actually bought into this plan and, you know, bring that back to us. That's how I feel. Again, there's a motion on the floor and it's properly second. You know, so I have to go, and that was my discussion. Any other discussion?
Yes.
I have
I got Council President Rosado.
Yes, and Sandy, thank you for the great presentation and the rest of the team. I express the same sentiments that Councilwoman Surgeon has. I'd actually like to see this postponed until we have further dialogue and the community has been brought in. I have had residents for the city of Hartford actually call me up and state that they actually never received anything in writing. One day they woke up and they saw a bike lane in their neighborhood. I have residents who are handicapped and so forth. So yes, this has been, you know, in the works for years. And yes, I support the project going forward, but I can't support something that the community doesn't, has not come in fully. Thank you.
Councilman Sanchez.
Yes, I do have another question, and hold on, let me. So there's one thing that hasn't been expressed here. How about the maintenance of these bicycle lanes? I mean, you know, first of all, you know, the DPW for city property, they're already obligated to clear this, you know, besides the streets, but certain, you know, sidewalks throughout the city. What is the cost for the maintenance of bike lanes as well as the signage?
Generally, the cost of a standard bike lane is the maintenance cost is not significant. The markings need to be kept up to date. Where there's an issue, and we haven't implemented any of these yet, although DPW is working on a plan for Weathersfield Avenue, is when we have a physically separated bike lane where the plow can't just get to the curb. You know, that raises a question, how do you clear those? So that's something that DPW is working through as they think about having that kind of design. How would they maintain through the winter? That's really the largest impact with maintenance and bike lanes.
Any other discussion? There's a motion and it was seconded. So how does the committee want to vote on this? Those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
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 Though not in favor of the motion?
I'm not in favor.
2, 3. Okay, so the motion fails. I don't know if
Madam
Council,
Chair?
yes,
Madam Chair,
it's myself.
I'd
I'm
like to
sorry?
make a motion,
I can't hear you.
to postpone in committee until we get community buy-in and have further dialogue.
Second.
Discussion and postponing it until we get further community buy-in. Okay, hearing no discussion and the motion was properly second. How does the committee wants to vote on it? Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Those against the postponement?
Against.
I against.
Okay.
I am against
Oh.
postponing. I really don't understand why we're postponing something so important.
Okay, so the amendment, the motion to postpone until community buy-in passed. So I believe that were the only two items we had on the agenda for tonight's meeting. This was a fantastic meeting. This was great for all the discussion. I'm really pleased so that we can have a discussion on the community, with the community. And I'm hoping that Ms. Fry, you and your team will take this out to the get some community buy-in. Because I think what you have here is a great plan, a plan which I know I can support, knowing that we also have the community buy-in. So seeing that we have no additional items on the agenda, I am going to call this committee meeting to a close. Thank everyone for joining us. Josie, it was lovely actually putting a face to a name. Thank you so very much, and thank the Ms. Fry for your great presentation. I really appreciate it. That was very well done.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Night.
Night.